You did the inner work last night. You entered the state. You felt it. You slept in the assumption. And this morning, before you had spoken a single word, before you had made a single decision, the outer world made its first move. It showed you the same circumstances, the same absence, the same unchanged reality that was there yesterday and the day before and every morning before that. And in that moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, it pulled you back. Not with force, with something far more powerful than force, with familiarity. The 3D world does not need to argue with you. It does not need to convince you of anything. It simply needs to be there, solid, visible, and unchanged. And your mind does the rest. Most practitioners never understand what is actually happening in that moment. They think the outer world is telling them something true. It is not. I want to show you tonight exactly what the 3D world is and what it is not. Because once you understand this clearly, it can never pull you back the same way again. Stay with me. I said it many times throughout my teaching, and I want to say it again tonight with complete precision. There can be no outer change until there is first an inner change. Read that carefully. The outer world does not move first. It cannot. It is not designed to. The outer world, everything you see with your physical senses, every circumstance, every condition, every person and relationship and situation in your life is a shadow, not in the poetic sense, in the precise architectural sense. William Blake said it with perfect clarity. All that you behold, though it appears without, it is within, in your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow. A shadow has no independent existence. It exists only as the projection of something that stands before the light, and you are the light. Your consciousness, your imagination, your assumptions, the state you occupy, is what casts the shadow. The outer world is simply the shadow your inner world is currently casting. Do you understand what this means? It means the 3D world you are looking at this morning is not a report on your present reality. It is a report on your past assumptions. Everything you see today was created weeks, months, sometimes years ago, by a state of consciousness you may have already abandoned. The shadow has not yet caught up with the light, but you are staring at the shadow and concluding that nothing has changed. And that conclusion, that single, quiet, automatic conclusion, is the most dangerous moment in any practitioner's day. Because what you do in that moment determines everything that follows. Let me describe something I have seen in thousands of people who came to my lectures. They practice beautifully at night. They enter the state with sincerity. They feel the wish fulfilled with genuine emotion. They fall asleep in the assumption with real conviction. And then morning comes. And in that first unguarded moment, before the practice begins, before the intention is set, the outer world presents its evidence. And they look at it, not because they are weak, not because they lack faith, but because looking is the most natural thing in the world. We are trained from birth to trust what we see, to let the visible world tell us what is real. And so they look at the unchanged circumstances, and they feel the familiar weight of it. And in feeling that weight, even for a moment, even silently, even without a single conscious thought, they have stepped back into the old assumption. They have, without knowing it, re-accepted the old state as the truth of their life. And the subconscious, that faithful, impersonal, utterly reliable servant, receives that re-acceptance as a new instruction. This is still what is real. Continue building from this. All the work of the night before is not erased, but it is weakened. And if this happens every morning, day after day, week after week, the morning re-acceptance becomes as powerful as the nightly practice, and the two cancel each other out. This is why so many sincere practitioners feel stuck, not because the law is failing them, because they are practicing in two directions simultaneously. But here is what most people never understand about that moment of looking. I want you to think about an echo when you speak in a vast empty hall. Your voice travels outward, strikes the walls, and returns to you. The echo you hear is not a new sound. It is the original sound, delayed. Your current circumstances are that echo. They are the delayed return of a state of consciousness you occupied weeks or months ago. Not the state you occupied last night, not the state you are occupying right now, the state you occupied before, the one that sent the original sound out into the world. And here's the part that changes everything. You cannot silence the echo by refusing to speak again. The echo must complete its cycle. It must return, be heard, and then, only then, fade. So when you look at unchanged circumstances in the morning, you are not seeing evidence that your new assumption has failed. You are hearing the echo of an old assumption completing its cycle. The new assumption, the one you planted last night, has already sent its own sound into the hall. That echo is forming. It has not yet returned, but it is coming. The question is, what will you do while you wait for it? Will you send out the old sound again by reaccepting the old state in the morning and restart the cycle of the old echo? Or will you let the old echo fade by staying in the new assumption long enough for the new echo to arrive? I once said something that most people treat as a metaphor, but I intended as a precise instruction. The best denial is not a fight, it is total indifference. Things wither and die through indifference. The old circumstances, the echo of the old assumption, have no power to sustain themselves if you stop feeding them your attention and your emotional reaction. But the moment you look at them and feel the familiar weight, you have fed them. And they continue. Do you see now what is actually happening in that moment of looking? And do you see what the alternative is? It is not denial. It is not pretending the circumstances do not exist. It is something far more precise and far more powerful. I want to tell you about a man who understood this, not through study, but through a single decisive experience. He had been practicing this teaching for several months. His circumstances had not moved. Every morning the outer world presented the same evidence, the same closed doors, the same absence of the thing he desired. And every morning he felt the pull, the quiet, reasonable voice of the 3D world saying, "Look at the facts. Nothing has changed. Perhaps nothing will." He came to me carrying the exhaustion of someone who has been fighting that voice for months. And I said something to him that I want to say to you tonight. I told him, you are not failing because the law is not working. You are failing because every morning you are looking at the shadow and concluding that the light has not moved, but the light has moved. You moved it weeks ago. The shadow simply has not caught up yet. And every morning when you look at the shadow and feel the weight of it, you move the light back. He asked me what he should do differently. I gave him one instruction, not a technique, not a new practice, an instruction about how to relate to the morning. I told him, when you wake and the outer world shows you the unchanged circumstances, look at them the way you look at weather. You see rain, you acknowledge it. You do not argue with it. You do not feel that the rain is a personal judgment against you. You simply note it, and you go about your day from the assumption that is already planted. The rain does not change where you are going. It does not change who you are. It is simply weather. He did this for 3 weeks, not perfectly, not without moments of slipping, but consistently enough that the new assumption began to feel more familiar than the old one. And in the 4th week, without warning, without any action on his part, the bridge of incidents began to form, not all at once. In small, unmistakable movements, the echo of the new assumption had finally returned. I want to give you something concrete tonight, not a new technique to add to your practice, a new relationship with the morning, because the morning is where the 3D world makes its strongest claim on your inner state. And how you handle that claim determines more about your manifestation than any session of SATS or revision ever could. Here is the correction, precise and practical. The first instruction, do not check immediately. When you wake, before you look at your phone, before you review the circumstances, before you measure whether anything has changed, spend 60 seconds in the assumption, not in formal practice, simply 60 seconds of being the person for whom it is already done, not with intensity, not with effort, with the flat, unremarkable certainty of someone stating their own name. Set the inner weather before the outer world makes its first report. The second instruction, look with indifference, not with hope. When you do look at the circumstances, and you will, and that is fine, look at them the way you look at an old photograph. The photograph shows something that was true at the time it was taken. It is not a live report. It is not a verdict. It is simply a record of a previous state. Your current circumstances are that photograph. They show what was true when the previous assumption sent its echo into the world. They have nothing to say about what is happening right now, in the only place that matters, in consciousness. The third instruction, do not protest. I said it in my writing, and I will say it again tonight. To protest against anything that happens to us is to protest against the law of our own being. When you react to unchanged circumstances with frustration, with impatience, with the feeling that the law is not working, you are feeding the very state you are trying to dissolve. The 3D world feeds on your reaction. Starve it, not with suppression, not with forced positivity, with the quiet, settled indifference of someone who already knows how the story ends. Because you do know, you planted the assumption. The echo is forming. Your only responsibility is to stay in the new state long enough for it to return. Tonight, before you sleep, do not review the circumstances. Do not measure how far things have moved. Do not calculate how much longer it might take. Simply return to the assumption. And tomorrow morning, when the 3D world makes its first claim, remember what it actually is. An echo, old sound returning from old walls. Not a verdict on your new assumption. Not evidence that the law has failed. Simply the delay between the inner change and its outer expression. There can be no outer change until there is first an inner change. The inner change has already happened. You made it. Now the outer world is simply catching up. Let it. Do not help it. Do not rush it. Do not measure it. Simply stay in the new assumption. Through the morning, through the ordinary hours, through every moment the 3D world tries to pull you back, with the quiet, settled certainty of someone who already knows the echo is coming. Because it always comes. The law has never failed once. It is working right now. Let the outer world catch up.